Hi, everyone. I'm Jamie Vaughn with the How She Got There podcast by Nxt Level. I have to tell you, I'm super, super excited. The theater geek in me is freaking out a little bit. When I took this job at Nxt Level a few months ago, they asked me to take on this podcast about women in tech. And the first person I looked up when I Googled women in tech happened to be Carla Stickler, who played on Broadway. We are super excited to have you here. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me, Jamie.
And I said your name wrong, didn't I?
Carla Stickler. I wasn't sure. You said it, but I'm so used to people saying it wrong that
So sorry. I realized that there's a P in there. Shame on me. So I saw this article about you, and it was something you posted on LinkedIn about being excited to, be back on Broadway. And I thought there is no way that this has fallen in my lap for me to try to get you. And I thought there was absolutely no possible way that I was going to get you on the show, but I thought I would try. And here we are. I'm so excited you're here. Thank you for coming on.
Of course. It's my pleasure. So
I want to hear, where did you grow up and what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, goodness. Well, I grew up in Chicago. So I grew up in Oak Park, which is like the west side of Chicago. And my whole family were all musicians. So I kind of always wanted to be a performer. That was kind of a given, right? Like that I would be in the arts and I'd be a musician. My mother is a classical pianist and my grandmother was an opera singer. And so it was just kind of like this like obvious thing that me and my brothers would all go into. And my mom was like really big into Broadway. So I just kind of got into that at a very young age. And I performed in my hometown and I did a lot of shows and I just I fell into it. Like I was naturally kind of good at it. So I kind of just, that was what I was going to do. The funny thing is my dad was an engineer and he was always like, Carla, he loves to tell people the story. He's like, I used to tell her all the time, she's smart, she could get into engineering. And I was always like, no, musical theater. That's what I'm going to do. So he was always kind of in the back of my head when I was trying to think about what else I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I was like, I don't know, maybe I should be an engineer.
So now you're working for G2 as an engineer, software engineer. How did you go from Broadway into engineering? What sparked that for you to change careers?
Yeah. So it's funny. While I had my dad kind of always like in my ear being like, you should be an engineer. I really never considered it until a few years ago. I was really pursuing musical theater very hard. I was a professional at it for, like 15 years. And I just got very burnt out. I loved what I did, but it's to say I was burnt out, I think is really kind of one of those things I can say with privilege because I got to perform and a lot of people don't even get to the point that I got to. And, I was really fortunate and I had a really great career, but the reality of performing full-time 8 shows a week for that many years in a row really wore me out. And I realized one day I was like, I don't have any life. I have like no social life. I'm exhausted all the time. My body hurts. I was just like, this doesn't really feel sustainable. And at that point I was like, I'm like in my 30s already and I don't know what I'm going to do. I was like, I can't do this forever. And so I actually left performing full time. I'm giving you finger quotes here. In 2015, I was in Wicked at that point, I'd been with the show for about 5.5 years, full time. And I was just so tired. I was like, I gotta get out and I need to find a reason to leave. Because there's this thing in the performing arts where, because I was so fortunate and I was in Wicked, like the biggest show in Broadway. And I had to kind of give myself a reason to leave that I felt like would kind of make sense to the rest of the world. Right. So I was like, okay, well, I like teaching. I've been teaching voice lessons and I've been teaching a little bit here and there. And so I was like, maybe I'll go back and I'll get a master's in education and I'll go and teach theater and music. So I did that because I was like, that's something that people can get on board with, right? That's like an excuse that I can explain to people and they'll be like, oh, that makes sense. That's like a noble move from Broadway. So I left to go to NYU to get my master's and then I taught for a few years, but I was also kind of performing on and off. And then that was like 2015. Oof. I was still performing a little bit though. I had like this really fun cruise ship job, and I was teaching on and off, and like, but I was still really burnt out. I still was kind of in the back of my head, still kind of pursuing performing arts because I was teaching. So I was like, well, if I'm teaching this, I should still kind of actively be trying to do this a little bit.
Right.
And I just was having a lot of trouble encouraging my students to get into a business where I was really falling out of love with, kind of like there was just a lot of things that I wasn't really liking about the business. And I was having a lot of trouble being excited for my students. You know, I was like, college students, I love you. You're so talented and you're wonderful. And I had to tell you to go into this and know that this business is going to crush you all, because that's what it does to people. You know, I like wanted to protect them, and it's really not my place, but I was like, I can't really teach them if I'm feeling like this. So a friend of mine in 2018 just like showed up to my birthday party, who was a musician. And he was like, Carla, I'm a software engineer now. And I was like, what? And it was funny. I think maybe it was my dad's voice in the back of my head, but the second he mentioned it, I was like, oh, I think I could do that. That sounds really interesting. And I went home and I just like started teaching myself how to code. And I really fell in love with it. It was so creative in a way that I was really craving. Like I was craving that kind of creativity where I had a little more control over the creativity. And learning to code, you know, you're basically building something from scratch, and everything you create is something that you just did. So I was like, this is cool. I like this. And I felt really hard. And then I went to a boot camp in 2019, and then I started my job search right when the pandemic started, which was not a fun time to start my job search. But I ended up in a customer success role for a year before I got my first engineering role, because no one was hiring juniors. I had a lot of phone calls with people who were like, we think you're great. We're not hiring juniors. And I was like, cool, okay. So I just need a job. So I took like the first job I could get an interview at. So I'd get my foot in tech, and then was kind of, I spent the year there and was like, okay, I'm ready to be an engineer. And by the time I switched jobs, the world had kind of opened up again. And now I've been at G2 for, oh gosh, almost a year actually. That's crazy. Yeah.
So something fun happened for you. You know, you were an understudy for Elphaba, and you were in the ensemble for Wicked. And then you go into the tech world. What happened over the holidays this year for you, though?
Yeah. So when I left the industry, I really thought I was done. I very much like because we moved to Chicago. So I was like, I am leaving New York. Wicked can't call me anymore. Because I had been kind of an emergency vacation cover for them on and off since I left full time. And so when we moved, I was like, that's it. I am removing myself from the equation. They cannot call me anymore. And then during the pandemic, the Omicron surge, I guess you would call it, and over the holidays, they kind of ran out of Elphabas. And I was like, we were headed up to Northern Michigan on vacation, and I got a text message from one of the not company managers. Yeah, I don't remember who called me. I got a text message from somebody in the company, and they were like, Carla, what are you doing? Can you come to New York tomorrow? And I was like, oh, yeah, I guess I could go to New York tomorrow. And it was an interesting moment for me, because I really had all of this like feelings of like, I'm done with this. I don't want to do it anymore. But also watching everything going on in New York, I felt like this was something I had to go do. You know, I had to kind of go and help out where I could. You know, once an understudy, always an understudy. And I felt like I had this like duty that I had to get on an airplane and hopefully not get COVID, so I could actually help them out. Yeah. And then I got to go on, which was really wonderful. I hadn't played Elphaba since 2015, which was kind of remarkable for me. I had been her understudy for a long time, and whenever I would go in as like a vacation cover, I was always kind of rehearsed up on it. Like I could do it if I needed to, but I never had a chance to really perform it. So it was always just kind of understood that Carla would know it. She'd come in, she'd hang out at the theater, and or I'd do the ensemble track. But I never got a chance to do it again. And as an understudy, you never know if you're going to ever do it again. And so I thought when I moved to Chicago, I was like, well, I'm done because it'll never happen again. And so to have like that last opportunity to go and do it and know, like, in my soul, this is definitely the last time I'm probably going to do this. And I always throw probablys in there because I don't know. The world is weird.
Yeah.
But, to have like a little closure for myself was really cool to get to like do that again and really do it under, in a way that I wanted to do it, like not doing it because I'm doing it for anybody else. Really, like, oh, I get to be here. I get to own this moment. And then I get to go home to my life and my job as a software engineer. And that's really awesome because I don't want anything from this. I don't need this, but I get to enjoy it, which was really cool.
Yeah. And then it just explodes. Everybody forgot about it. Little me in Nashville's like, I need to talk to her.
Yeah, it was bonkers. I mean, I've never, as an understudy, I've never had this kind of attention before. It means a lot to me. I think it's really lovely. And I had a lot of girlfriends, like a lot of Elphabas, reach out to me and just be like, girl, we knew you could do it. I'm so glad. Like, people were just like very happy for me. And it was really nice to see that and have like that outpouring of support from everyone. And, because as a performer, especially as an understudy, you never really get a lot of chances to have that. Whenever you go on, you're performing because there are a couple other people that can't perform. So you don't ever really get to put it on blast that you're going to be on. So to get to have those moments was pretty special and pretty cool.
And to play Elphaba, one of the most iconic roles on Broadway, that's in and of itself. So yeah.
To get to like sit back in her power for a minute was really exciting.
Yeah, and get to fly up in the air, all that stuff. I love Wicked. So yes, I see it every time. I've seen it on Broadway. The national touring group was better. I'll tell you that story later.
Okay.
But it's such an amazing play. And then for you to get that to kind of hope, if you want it to be your last hurrah at the acting, you have that ability to kind of lay that to rest in a good place. So I'm glad that came along for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, you got into tech late. How? And it isn't something that normally is presented to women as a career path. How do you think we get more women involved?
Oh, goodness. I think, honestly, it's like a catch-22, right? We get more women involved by showing that there are more women involved.
Right.
I think one thing I try to be really vocal about as much as I can is just like promoting other women in tech and being like, look, if I can do this, you can do this. I just learned how to do this. So like, if I can do this, anybody should be able to do this. And I think just kind of getting over that little imposter syndrome thing, recognizing that there are a lot of really amazing, talented women out there who have every right to take up space in that space, in tech, and especially as software engineers. Even in my company, I'm always pushing them, like, let's get more women. Why don't we have more women? And I know it's, I think there are clearly not as many women applying for those roles. And a lot of the roles that tend to be more senior, you get less women applying to those roles. So it's, as we have kind of this push to get more diversity into tech, a lot of those roles that we're going to fill that diversity with are going to be those junior roles, right? Like, because they have to start somewhere. And so I think having companies acknowledge that is the pipeline, and it is your job to fill those entry-level roles with people who maybe don't look like you, so that we can start getting more people into that pipeline who are not your typical engineer, so that when we do have senior roles open up and we have all these, higher level roles, there will be more women in those pipelines.
Very, very true.
Yeah, it's hard. I get it. I know, like, my friends who are all senior engineers, senior female engineers, because tech companies are really into hiring women right now. They're like, they have kind of the pick of the lot, right? They go to the companies they want to go to. So if a company wants to get more women in there, they're going to have to bring them in at an earlier stage. So we're out there. There's a lot of us.
We're seeing more of that at Nxt Level, our parent company.
That's great.
Really reaching out to women and minorities and creating that diversity within the companies. Yep.
That's great.
Yeah. All right. Last question.
Yes.
No, it's not the last. It is not the last. Okay. So best career advice you've ever received?
Oh, goodness. You can cut out all the blank spaces here. I gotta think about this.
And it doesn't have to be even with tech. It could be, something that you carry along.
I guess, like, to kind of tie into that women thing, right? Like, I hear this a lot in regards to applying for jobs, and in both tech and theater, just like this idea of moving through life like a mediocre white man moves through life. Just like take up the space, like as a woman especially, right? We have every right to be where we are. And I think a lot of women, we second guess ourselves because we're trained at such a young age to second guess ourselves and to only put ourselves out there when we feel 100% ready for something. And there are a lot of, we don't really teach young women to fail and get back up. We expect perfection at such an early age. And so women don't flex those failure muscles as much as boys do, because we teach boys to fall down and get back up, get back in there. And so I think for me, especially, it's just recognizing that failure is not a stopping point. And there's also nothing scary about failure. Failure is a learning lesson, right? Failure is something that we can grow from and learn from. And every opportunity is a chance to, learn something new about yourself. And whether it goes well or not, that's information, that's data, that's stuff you can take with you to the next one. And so just allowing yourself to move through those things instead of hitting them, like getting to that wall and being like, well, I can't be here. I shouldn't be here because I failed at that thing. Boys, we teach them to just keep pushing through, to ask for things even when they don't feel qualified. And women, we don't preach that enough at women, at young girls. So, the best advice really is just like, put yourself out there. It doesn't matter if you are qualified or not. Maybe it's a networking opportunity. Maybe you weren't right for that thing, but you got to meet somebody and have a really great conversation. And maybe in a couple of years when you are right for that thing, because you built that network of, that relationship with that person, maybe they'll have something for you or whatever. I just think it's this idea of like pushing away that imposter syndrome, really, not being afraid. And just doing it. Just who cares, right? You want something, go get it.
I always tell people you're already at no anyway if you don't ask. So why not ask and be told no?
100%.
That way you know. Yeah. All right. Now this is the last question. Okay. I want to hear what inspires you.
Oh my goodness. Right now, what inspires me is all the people that, since this moment happened in my life, just like all the people, women especially, who have reached out to me to just be like, oh my gosh, I see myself so much in this story. People telling me that they felt so alone. They didn't realize that there was a path to be an artist, but also be in another field, right? Like thinking that, especially as artists, we tend to tell young kids that only go into the arts if you can't see yourself doing anything else, and so we really limit their ability to imagine themselves doing other things.
Mhm.
And so then these artists, they hit this point where they're like, I don't know what else to do because I've spent all this time on this one path and maybe I'm not happy, or maybe it's not giving me what I wanted, or I'm not seeing it go the way I expected it to. And so there's this panic of like, I don't know what to do. And what I found really inspiring is that all these people who have found that on their own, reaching out and being like, I feel so seen. I'm not alone. Like there are people like this, like me out there who have chosen to maybe step away from being a full-time artist to find some sort of stability in their life and
Right.
some sort of security, with a steady paycheck and health insurance and all those things that go along with having like a real job. And
Right.
then being like, but also I do music on the side, or like I'm in a choir, I play in an orchestra, but also I have this other life.
Mhm.
And I think that's really cool. I've just been so amazed by how large that community is. There are so many people out there like that.
Mhm.
And that's been really encouraging for me, because I'm like, oh, well, I guess because I stepped away from the arts doesn't mean I have to stop being an artist.
Right.
So I'm trying now for myself to figure out, what does that look like now that I have a full-time job and I have that security and I'm not stressed out about where my next paycheck's going to come from. I can start finding space
Mhm.
to be an artist again, which is really inspiring for myself.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what I'm able to do when I'm not stressed out about, how much my body hurts and where my next meal is going to come from, because I have
Right.
all the things that I need.
Mhm.
It's cool. It's been really inspiring.
Yeah. Well, I have loved getting to talk to you today, and I know our audience is excited to hear from you.
Thank you. It's
You
been
are
really nice to talk to you as well.
all right. Well, thank you very much.
Just